Wag1, Tuesday, week 2 of the peak. Today is the deadlift day, and we're getting in our nutrients before we go and hit the gym and hit our deadlifts. So I've been trying to work around some gut issues, as I mentioned in the previous episode. I got my bloods done, and there's been some slight improvements, right? So the kind of main changes I've made so far is I have changed up this meal a little bit, all right? So I was eating 400 to 500 grams of potatoes. So essentially I've halved the amount of potatoes I'm having here, and I've added in some rice because we do think I was having probably a little bit too high levels of fiber potentially. So I've been reducing some of the fibers, especially sources that will typically help to increase transit time. So potatoes are one of those ones that, if you're struggling with maybe constipation or not going to the bathroom as often, potatoes are a really good fiber source to actually add in. But if you were on the opposite end of that, where you're not really struggling with constipation, but you're struggling maybe the faster rate of loss, well then actually reducing some of this more soluble fiber, and need to cross check that, insoluble fiber. I always get confused between the two of them, soluble, insoluble. But anyway, that's one of the changes I've made. I've also made a slight adjustment to some of the other vegetables within my diet too. As well as taking probiotic. It has been improving. So this has been the pre-workout meal of choice for the last 2 weeks now. And yeah, it's going down quite well. I'm a big fan of having more kind of meals like this prior to training. Being now I'm going to be training at 2:30. At this point I've got a lot of calories in. And one thing that's really important to, keep in mind is that when you're training, and you're training the next 30 minutes, hour, 90 minutes, the food you're taking in that pre-workout meal is not necessarily the thing that is giving you the energy that you need when you're training, because the amount of time it's going to take to digest, absorb, and assimilate all those nutrients is going to be a couple of more hours. Whereas it's typically the meal that you're having prior, the maybe first meal or kind of earlier meal, or a good couple of hours beforehand, which is really going to be helping you with the training, as well as the previous days of nutrition, right? So we're thinking about your pre-workout meals in more of a 24-hour view versus just being really myopic and being okay, it's just a pre-workout meal. No, it's your total energy status, your total nutrient status across the week, across the 24 hours. It's really kind of giving you what you need to perform in the gym. So this essentially is just serving a role of ensuring that I'm not going hungry. I'm going to stay satiated. It's a good opportunity for me to get in some good nutrients as well throughout the day. It has a decent amount of sodium in it too, which is going to help with the pump and hydration. So that's kind of the main reason I'm going for this. I'm not going for something that's faster acting, because I don't necessarily need to have a whey on cereal pre-gym, because it for me that digests so quickly that I actually just feel really hungry then during my training session. So I want something that's going to digest a little bit slower, going to keep me feeling a little bit fuller. And then keep in mind that I've already consumed about 1,200 calories in my first meal of the day a couple hours ago. We're off to do deadlifts today. I'm not feeling, my head has been just a little bit all over the place in regards to this upcoming competition. Last week didn't help, my first training session back being so rough after my weekend of gallivanting in Valencia with my friends. But even just in terms of long-term trajectory of me doing powerlifting, I kind of mentioned this a couple of videos back. I don't know if I am as kind of bought into my current goals as I once have been, which is kind of weird. I don't feel at the same level when I get into the gym and going into deadlift, going into squat. And I do think it's kind of affecting me a little bit mentally, because I don't like feeling this way naturally. I like feeling when I come into the gym that I'm really driven to pursue the goal, to lift the weights the way I need to, getting aggressive and everything, and feeling as if me lifting the weight means something. I'm just not quite getting that at the moment, but I'm hoping this week things turn around. It could have been last week, I was having a bad week, and maybe this week things will start to turn around. I just need some positive sessions to kind of help spur me on. And kind of get me in the mood for competing in the next few weeks. Because you watched the last video of me in Poland, doing an underwhelming squat, below where I'm kind of expecting myself to be and not meeting my expectations. And look, I think when you're going through a powerlifting peak and these type of things are happening and you're not kind of living up to your expectations, you feel like you're not displaying the progress that you've made. It can be a tough one to take, but look, ultimately at the end of the day, that's the sport, and that's why recovery as well is so important. And was it the best decision to maybe be on there for 3 days in a row? Before I start my powerlifting peak, probably not. But I actually value those experiences with my friends at the moment far more than this next powerlifting competition. Even though between now to competition, I'll be pretty much I'm going to be locking in as best I can. But friends don't get married all that often. Powerlifting competitions, they come and go. That's where my headspace is at the moment. Single on squats, some doubles. Single on deadlifts, some doubles, as well as bench single and some bench doubles too, and then some kind of bodybuilding hypertrophy work. And I'll take you through it. All right, a big part of getting serious with this prep is going to be getting the singlet out. Which one will I wear today? Apex one. Has this even been washed since the last time I wore it? Just in April. It smells pretty fresh. There's still a heap of talc on it. Guess we'll just go with the old A7. Haven't worn this singlet in a long time. Some people don't like wearing singlets in training. I actually really enjoy wearing my singlet in training, especially when I'm in prep. But if you train for a body to look good in a singlet, you may as well don it from time to time.
Wall of sound. The speakers were like black booming chasms, vibrating with a crescendo of spiraling orgasmic noise. It was taking my fucking head off and making me rush. It was a wall of acid. It was a wall of acid. It was taking my fucking head off and making me rush.
I need those deadlifts to go well to boost my confidence, because not gonna lie, after last week's training, which is naturally just like getting you back into a training, and even this weekend squat session, wasn't feeling too confident about my lifting at all, to be honest. Part of me was like, will I even do this competition? But that session today there kind of like, or that just deadlift and bench, just kind of like told me, hey, you know what, just give it a couple of weeks here. You've built all the strength the last couple of months. All you really need to do across the next couple of weeks is ensure that you're able to express it, get really good at the skill of lifting one single rep at a heavy load. So I'm really happy with how that deadlift went. 275 for my week 2 single, considering I did 250 last week, and 250 felt like probably harder than 275 felt this week. That's really promising. So the road to 300 is on. But anyway, in regards to what we have for the rest of the session now, I just did some lying hamstring curls, some single arm pull downs, some dips, and then just some biceps. I'm not training 5 days a week anymore. I'm just training 4 days a week. I'm really pulling down my accessories and trying to be very mindful of those this peak, because in previous like peaks, I think I've just like overdone the amount of accessories that I really needed to do, especially on my upper body. And then when it did come to like bench press was like one of those ones that did lag a little bit. So I'm trying to be a little bit more kind of methodical about how I'm going about my bench training across like these next couple of weeks in regards to managing intensity on the secondary days, but as well as just not ensuring I'm not writing myself off with like way too many accessories, because like ultimately accessories, like while they're important, the amount of accessories that we need to do to maintain muscle mass or even to progress in regards to muscle mass is very, very low, and there's no need for me to be running like, you know, a maximum level or even like middle level of volume on my accessories at this point in time, because I only have a couple of weeks to peak. So I need to keep the goal, and that's such an important thing to keep in mind within your training, is keep the goal. One thing that's really important to keep in mind if you're doing these lat pull downs, people will say that when you're doing a pull down or when you're doing a row variation, especially like this, if you laterally flex, so you kind of crunch down to your side, you will get a better contraction. And while this is true, because the lats do laterally flex the spine, it doesn't really matter. The reason for it being is if I'm pulling in this plane of motion, right, what relevance does that have to my lats flexing in this direction? Not really. So just because a muscle has a certain function doesn't necessarily mean that we need to do that function within the exercise to actually train it. Because while lateral flexion is one of the functions of the lats, we're not training a lateral flexion with a pull down. We can do some lateral flexion to get a greater contraction, but it's not really relevant because we're not loading that pattern. So just keep that in mind. Like, fair enough, you want to do it, it feels better, but just be aware you're not actually like getting more stimulus into that muscle just because you're doing this. And especially if that little bit of energy takes away from getting more reps in the plane that you're actually pulling through, it's kind of a waste of energy.
Welcome to Sunday. So wrapped up that first half of the video with my Tuesday session, my deadlift session, which went really, really well. That's like the first good session I have had in probably 2 weeks. And I did need it after the previous week, because I know I showed the session I had in Poland, which was just a terrible session overall. It just wasn't a fun session, and I just felt, again, didn't feel strong the week before, as I kind of already mentioned in this video, But today is going to be my next squat single. I'm aiming for something that could be like 240 to 245. Squats been feeling really strong this week. Like on my secondary squat day, squat was up 15 kilos at the same RPE. So I guess you could say we're so back. As the kids would say, I just feel so cringe saying that. Yeah, I can't be trying to get in with these young person phrases, and it's kind of depressing that I can't really kind of consider myself young. But then again, I'm kind of glad I'm not part of the TikTok generation. Anyway, grumpy old man. So today's Sunday. base squat single, we're doing some pin press. But right now, as always, we're caffeinating, starting the day off some reading. Of course, we have the Daily Stoic. I'm also reading the Daily Breastfield and then the Code of the Extraordinary Mind. Daily Stoic, I've talked about many times on this channel. Daily Breastfield, it's actually quite good. This is if you make the YouTubes, you make the podcast, you make content in any regard, that's quite helpful, because it's essentially it's the same concept as the Daily Stoic, just like a page a day of like wisdom or something, right? But it's all about trying to break the resistance of making things, right? Making things or doing things, right? So anytime you have a goal, it's always going to be met with the resistance, as Stephen calls it, to actually action on that, right? And when it does come to making content, like for me, for sure, like I've been struggling with it lately, but like making things on Instagram, which is, it sounds silly because, like, you know, I could literally make out an entire list of things I could post about, but it's more so the actioning it part, which I'm struggling with right now in regards to the format of the posts, in regards to talking posts, training posts, carousels, pictures, because it's really hard to understand. I guess for me, what seems to be kind of working, or is, like, you know, kind of driving, you know, the things I'm really kind of concerned about, which is, like, you know, getting people on my page who are interested in signing up for coaching with me. My resistance is kind of around like the actual implementation part of it versus having the actual knowledge, and this can often be like the case with like a lot of content creators, like, or people who want to put out content, is they have the knowledge there, they just are unsure of how to do it, or they are fighting against the idea of maybe being wrong. That's also a big thing that comes into people. That, thankfully, that's not necessarily something that I care about all too much, because I'm okay if I'm being wrong. Like, I'm okay to be wrong and be corrected. Ultimately, if I am wrong and somebody corrects me, that's a way for me to learn and understand where I had that like wrong point of view or wrong information. And I do my best to ensure that when I do put out content, it is as factually based or logically based as possible. Spend a lot of money on education. Whenever you, like, even you watching this, right, you might have a goal when it does come to training, nutrition, and there's inevitably going to be some part of that journey where you have that resistance. And it's important to understand that when you do have a goal, it's going to be there. And the bigger that goal is, the bigger that resistance is going to be. The bigger that doubt is going to be. You know, you're struggling with the actual actioning, the implementation side, and you don't necessarily need motivation. It's just the actioning thing, right? Because like ultimately action comes first and motivation comes second. I definitely recommend this. Or if even just getting his other book, The War of Art. I read that last year and it's really, really good. The next one I'm reading is The Code of the Extraordinary Mind. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what it's about just yet, because I am only a couple of pages in, but it just seems like a kind of generic self-help book, really, or self-improvement book. I'll give you my insights and updates maybe a couple of videos on. This morning also, I'm going to be trying to get Glastonbury tickets. That's going to probably take up a significant portion of my time. I won't record that. But yeah, hopefully get them after seeing people at Glastonbury like this year. Like, it's always been one of those festivals where, you know, wanted to go, but because it's abroad, it's kind of hard to get people to maybe want to get a group together. And with the fact that I'm in Spain at the moment, I was in Canada last year, so naturally enough I wasn't going to go from Canada to England to go to a fucking festival. And the previous year I was on prep, so next year is realistically my only year that I can go, unless I want to wait until 2027 or 2028, because I am going to be doing a prep in 2026. So I want to try to get tickets to, this year, like for next year. The stages, the size of the lineup, like it's just incredible. But the stages that I saw last year for all like the electronic music, like dance, techno stages, savage, and there's a good crew was going. So, you know, looking forward to that. Festivals are one of those things where, you know, they're the thing that I like to go to. You know, they're the thing I like to get up to on the weekends. Well, not on the weekends. Every couple of months, if I was to spend my money on going on a trip, going on a holiday, I want to make that as part of the centerpiece. You know, even like this year, went to Gotwood, went to Tulum to the Afterlife event at the start of the year, going to Amsterdam at the end of the year, going to the Zigadome, to Free Your Mind, which is a festival in Amsterdam. It's just my jam.
sein, die ihr jetzt weint. Denn ihr werdet lachen. Glücklich werden die Armen sein. Denn sie werden das Leben zu Besitz erhalten. Verzweifelt nicht.
All right, there we have it. That is today's top single done, 245. John said to go up to 237 after last week. So did 230, as you've seen in the Poland video. And, you know, whatever. Hit 237 though, and was like, you know what? I think that moves well enough to go up to 245. So I'm happy with how the 245 moved. It was obviously moved a little bit slower than the 237 and then the 215, but that's what I'm practicing for at the moment. At the moment I'm practicing to, like, you know, maxed out in a couple of weeks time, so I'm pacing quite well. I'd say next week I'd probably go with another 7.5 kilo jump. So the one thing about my squats, I'm quite good at like holding my position under like heavy loads like that, and straining for a single. Like all of my third attempts in my last few competitions have been, you know, well, except for the one in wraps, all my sleeve ones have been pretty much like, you know, RPE 10 on the platform, milking every kilo out of my body. And you know, it didn't hit like those in training. I was like close in training, maybe like a 9 is probably the highest I went. Because to give that a rating, I probably would give that a 9, maybe an 8.5, being generous. It's kind of hard to tell because like the first rep, like obviously I just did one rep, but like, you know, I've done triples where the first rep was as hard as that. So, you know, if I really want to be generous, to give myself an 8, but look, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. What matters is the weight was on the bar, I moved it, I don't feel fried after it, and I guess that's how hard it was. It felt difficult, but I don't feel fucked. So now we're gonna have 3 back downs. So I'm gonna drop the load back to 225 and just do 3 doubles, and then we're into some pin press. All right, so next up we have pin press, and this is week 3, but this is my first time doing it, this block. So I am not doing it as prescribed today, because what is prescribed essentially is like a top single, a top triple, and then 2 back downs. So considering I do my heavy bench now on Tuesday, today's Sunday, and because I haven't done this since the start of the program, we haven't like acclimated up to essentially like, you know, a single and that level of workload, I'm essentially just going to take 3 triples and do the sets like ascending. So obviously the first week I missed the Sunday session completely and had to combine it in an SBD session, so I just did my squat, my bench, my deadlift, just do competition style. And last week of course is in Poland, and yeah, the gym in Poland last week, just it wasn't set up to bench at all. Like I couldn't have done pin press even if I wanted to. So this is my first week doing it, so again, I am now in my normal gym, and I'll be in a normal gym for like the remainder of the peak. So the reason why I'm going with this ascending set structure versus following what is essentially on my program, again, as I mentioned, it's the first time doing this exercise in about 3 weeks, but also because my primary day is now going to be on Tuesday, I don't want to hit something that's going to be, you know, as prescribed as a single at 8, right? That's going to be very, very high load. That could potentially overly fatigue my triceps at this point. Coming into a heavier session now on Tuesday, that could be the reason why maybe my bench session on Tuesday moves a little bit slower, potentially, okay? So by doing an ascending work, by doing ascending sets essentially, number one, I'm going to keep the average workload relatively moderate, okay? I'm starting off at 6, go up to a 7, then go up to 8 RPE. But each of those sets gives you an opportunity to say, okay,
like, is this set the appropriate RPE, or should I go up for the next set, right? That's like what an ascending set is allowing you to do. It's allowing you to gauge the intensity that you should be at. And like, if you overextend yourself at one set, you say, okay, I'm gonna maybe repeat the same way for the next set, or I'm gonna take the load down slightly. Whereas once you go for like a top exposure set, like a top single, like it can be, if you don't get your warm-ups right, it can be a little bit easier to overextend yourself. And then with that as well, again, I don't want to overly fuck myself up before I get too much use in the session, because I've definitely found that on days where I've pushed my bench too hard, my primary rate has suffered, and ultimately that is the goal. So I've already done one set of this. I'm going to do 145 now for a triple, and then we have one more set after, and then it's time to do some accessories. I think 2.5 more kilos is the move. As nice as it would be to do 150, I'll be purely doing it for the sake of doing 150 for a triple. 147 is the smart call, so that's what we're gonna do.
Euch reichen. Die ihr jetzt satt seid. Ihr werdet hungern. Wehe euch. Die ihr jetzt lacht. Wehe euch. Denn ihr werdet fallen.
So I'm going to give you a cracking tip when it comes to doing your wide grip pull down. So quite often what I see people doing when they're doing the wide grip pull down is they can opt for the widest grip possible. Now, there's a reason why we shouldn't do this. So if we're considering the wide grip pull down attachment, okay? So if we grip the widest part of that, well, yeah, the muscles are actually trying to train. They are pulling in this direction, right? They're adducting the arm back into the body. However, because we are pulling on a pulley that is just acting straight down, by picking the widest grip possible and trying to go in that vector or go in that plane, it's actually making the pull less efficient. So if you consider, if I'm trying to pull down on this, it's really easy for me to pull on a straight down like this, right? Because I'm directly opposing the cable. However, if I get into just a position here, and not I'm facing the other way around, but if I come into this way and just think about pulling my arms into my sides, it is definitely a lot harder for me to pull the same weight, even though I'm using 2 arms. So what I recommend when you are doing the wide grip pull down, just pick a hand position that's just directly overhead. Wherever your arms go, when you lift your arms up overhead, that's essentially the grip that you should be looking to use. It's wide enough to be able to get an efficient line of pull on the actual cable, and it's going to be plenty wide to still hit the muscles of the upper back as well as your lats. Alright, so we're going to wrap up today's video there. I've got my post-workout smoothie. I got my cereal. Let's go down. It's Sunday. It is 5 PM. So I'm just going to relax now. Did plenty of work this morning. We failed in getting the Glastonbury tickets, by the way, because I'm sure you're dying to know that information. So yeah, not looking too hopeful now if we're going to get them in the resale. But now I'm just going to chill out. I'm just going to watch a TV show that I've been binge watching the last few days. Cross. It's on Prime Video. It's if you ever read any like James Patterson's books, it follows your man Alex Cross is like the detective in it. The series is fucking deadly. I actually read some of the books because they are here just like in the house. They were here like as we moved in, and like it's definitely worth watching. I've been looking for a good TV series to watch for a long time, and unfortunately there's only one season of it. But I definitely recommend if you do like the kind of like detective crime based like thriller type series. But other than that, that's the video, and then we're into a fresh week now this week. And look, this has been a really positive week of training. I did need that for the old head, so let's hope that this does continue, and
we'll be setting ourselves up for a good competition in the next 3 weeks. Alright, that's it. Thanks for following along. We'll chat later.